Welcome back to another episode on the Success Times Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Richard Thompson. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Vas Srinivasan, an orthodontist, speaker, innovator, and truly one of the Sunshine Coast's great entrepreneurial success stories. His story spans India, the US, the UK, and now Australia, shaped by resilience, family values, and an unwavering drive to build something meaningful. In this episode, you'll hear how Vas turned adversity into fuel, built a world-class practice from the ground up, and why ownership, mindset, and courage matter. Whether you're chasing growth, navigating challenges, or redefining your limits, this conversation is just for you. All right, let's get into it. Dr. Vas, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Oh, thanks for calling me Dr. Vas. Just call me Vas.
We'll get into it. The story is brilliant and inspiring, but with everything you have built today, is there an experience in your childhood that you won't let go of because it reminds you of how hard you've had to work to get to where you are?
Yes, my dad may not appreciate me saying this. Just to give some idea, my childhood was fantastic. Every time I look at everybody complaining about childhood, I suppose you always can pick the good and the bad. From one thing in when we were growing up is my dad was this teacher, and mom was a teacher too. And they invested all their savings into this business with 10 other teacher friends. And they bought into a factory of some sort that produced bags for, cement. And probably 3-4 years down the road, they found out that the guy who was leading them into this business pretty much got them all bankrupt. I would go as a little kid with my dad to these meetings, and I would be sitting on the side when they would talk about, let's say, AGM style meetings.
How old are you here?
I was 11.
Okay.
I had this sense of feeling that 1 or 2 people knew what they were talking about. The rest 8 put the money in, but they were just nodding their heads. And the 1 or 2 had to say stuff to make it feel like they knew something. And when the things all went bankrupt, what I learned from it was you would never screw anybody ever in your life for anything. You always try to be fair. The second is more people are involved in a business, less easy it is to get the job done. And most importantly, you have to be in it to win it. Otherwise, you're never going to, if you let somebody else make decisions, and if you're just there as a financial partner, expect to lose more than you expect to win sometimes. So that's one thing I learned from my childhood.
Your mother was a Burmese refugee?
My mother is a Burmese descent. My grandmother is a refugee.
Okay. And you grew up, your childhood was in India.
Mm-hmm.
Fathers grew up there. And I find the whole journey really interesting in the sense of you've gone from, you've got that DNA inside of you. You've gone to America, now in Australia. Your parents must have, as teachers, have this high level belief of education. In that story, though, them investing, because you're not only an academic and incredibly bright, but you got this wonderful entrepreneurial sort of backbone within your setup. They're often mutually exclusive. But do you think it's through that experience that started the cogs turning with your entrepreneurial spirit back when you were 11?
When I was 11, one thing really struck me was I'd go into this factory and there would be, 30, 40 people working in the factory floors, 2-3 shifts. You'd see them and when you saw them, they looked up you as a person who was feeding them, right? Like, you get my job. And it's always inspired me that I should be providing for many people in terms of a job, in terms of a future. And for that, I needed to be in a stronger place. And me working as an orthodontist, me working in a job, let's say I worked for the government clinic and I just worked. I was not going to be able to provide anybody directly, but being a business owner and owning multiple businesses, I see that every day. Is yes, not many people may appreciate it, but in a lot of ways, I'm providing for a lot of families to have a very strong future with me.
growing up in that environment, was there much discussion with your folks about that turmoil? Because obviously you've been brought into what sounds like creditor meetings or at AGMs, but is the dialogue at home open one to be able to say this is what's happening and this is unfortunate? Or?
No, a traditional Indian household would not have this dinner style conversations like we do in the Western world.
Talk to
right
me
now.
about what that looks like.
Yeah, so a traditional Indian household, let's say very traditional, the father would always work and the mother would be home, feeding the children fresh meals 3 times a day, cook and pack for the father to take. And then when he comes back home again, the routine of him dictating most decisions except financial. And mother would always dictate financials. And mother would guide you through what would be good for them in the future.
Okay.
Ours was slightly less traditional. My mother was educated. My father and mother both were the first graduates from their town.
Wow.
And Indian towns are a lot bigger than the towns we have here. And it took a lot of effort for them to go tell their parents, hey, listen, I need to go and educate myself to be better. And so they did have a sense of work, and they both worked long hours, but they both were determined for the kids to do better than themselves. A conversation around home would be what is respectful, what do you have to do well in life, and what do they want their kids to do. And so we had, like a hierarchy. You say, okay, look up that fancy household. How did they get there? And in some ways, capitalism, as in you work hard, you can be that person.
Mm.
But if you are going to find excuses, you're going to be below us in the next generation. And that really had an impact on us.
As you grew up in adolescence, did you push against that at all? Or is that just the landscape that you needed to?
Yeah, the survival of the fittest, there's no better place to see it than, say, somewhere like India. So let's say in our street, let's say there were 5 kids in my age group. We all were measured against each other on academic performance in school. Nothing was a secret. If you got 40% out of 100,
the street would know.
The street would know. And in a lot of ways, it's embarrassing, but we were not protected in that aspect that if you did well, you knew, everybody knew. If you did bad, everybody knew. So you really wanted to be at least in your street the top kid.
What's motivating you though, Vas? Because at that point, there are hundreds of thousands of kids in India that don't go on to do what you do, what you have done. So why do you think you in that environment, on that street, in that circumstance, why do you think that was all it all clicked into place and you were able to go down the path that you have?
I mean, one of the things is some of the people listening to this, depending on the age, may not know what dial-up internet is. And in India, trying to get a telephone line was a 1-year waiting time. You would apply, and it would take 1 year to get a landline to your house. Dial-up internet was you had to wait years. And as the country was growing, and the first thing I did was, when there was an opportunity for dial-up internet, I signed up for it. None of my family knew what it meant. Nobody else in my suburb knew what it meant. But I was able to understand what it meant by just hearing from, just reading and gauging the world of the web and what it could bring. And what differs between myself and my colleagues, and still my friends, high school friends in India, is they were not sure how to use the internet. And all I did with the internet is to see what universities out there outside of the country, what education, where is the Western society heading now, and how could I be part of it? So we were the first one to get an internet in my town, and the guy who came to install had no idea what it was for. So these are kind of nice quirks to know.
Right.
And the dial-up internet sound of the beep, 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 and all those things were, very fancy. Going back, how did you use a technology to become better? It started from there.
Yeah, right. And is that where the path went to go to America?
Correct.
And find that university?
Yes. So at that time, and nothing has changed much now, but if you're an Indian, the chances of getting an American visa was 1 out of 100.
Right.
and people would line up from 3 a.m. and it's a daily sight even now. And people would line up in front of the U.S. Embassy, and the guy on the other side of the counter or girl would decide within a minute or two whether they want to offer you a lifetime access to be in the most advanced economy in the world. But that still required you to be able to understand the accent. So I spent hours, if not days, watching Friends TV show.
Yeah, got it.
I would put on listening to all the audio stuff, how to respond to, and the obviously being with a strong Indian accent, if you didn't understand what they said and you said something, your life was made within that 1 minute. Not that you cannot be successful in India. I mean, a lot of people are successful, but I wanted to be outside of India to show that I could do it. And that really motivated me. I got the visa and I went and I created.
What was that like, going from India, being the only family or the first family to get internet, get dial-up, to go to the States?
It was unique because the
temperature would have been
temperature difference was fun. Coming from Chennai, or most people may know Madras, the southern part. The average temperature throughout the years around 28, 29 degrees. In summer, it's 40, 42. And my first day I landed in Minnesota was cold and -30 or -28. Roads are covered in snow. I'm taking this Greyhound bus to my university, whether I didn't know it was day or night. It was nail-biting cold, but I knew I made it. So I'm not looking back.
Were there any doubts?
I missed home. I missed food. I missed a warm temperature. But everything I looked at was foreign. And because, let's say, the British system is far more, growing up in India and having the British influence, it wouldn't be that difficult to go to UK or Australia to some extent. But when you go to the US, the sport is different. The driving is different. The culture is very different.
Units of measurement
is a pain. But I knew I was being given this opportunity, and nobody forced it on me. I took it up on myself. I embraced it to the point I bought a push bike in the middle of winter to ride through snow and ice. It wasn't a good idea. Fell down 3 times.
So at no point, it doesn't sound like you ever adopt any sort of victim mindset to any of the hurdles that come your way. Is that something, do you think you've always had as a kid all the way through to adulthood?
Yeah, it's also a bad thing though, Richard. I rarely empathize any further now with anybody plays, or when I get the hint of playing a victim. I go, it's the easiest choice we all can make. And when people make it consistently, it really, I get turned off very quickly. I go, look at this beautiful country we live in. We are blessed. And I say that every single time. Medicare is to help cover us. You make a very foolish decision climbing a mountain without knowing how to climb down from the mountain. Somebody comes in a helicopter, rescues you. You get drunk. People get picked you up in a hospital, in an ambulance, treat you, send you home at no cost. But we shouldn't abuse it, or we shouldn't say that is for granted. Again, that's also a negative thing, because a lot of people deserve a lot of empathy and sympathy. And I feel like I've lost that now, which is sad.
But it's something that you've grown into?
Yeah. I've become more of the person is like, you have a million opportunities, take it. And I see so many people grab it. But there are more people who don't grab it, but they explain some excuse, right? I mean, I feel like excuses are so many out there. And I go, but
it's habitual as well, right?
It is. And I just think everybody, unfortunately, believes if you're more successful than me, then you should have done something illegal. That's the mindset I'm seeing everywhere. No. If somebody is more successful than you, rich than you, if you like that, then try to find out what they've done well and try to use that as a way to propel yourself. Money always doesn't mean equal of happiness, right? But if that's what you want, that's what you got to do. But if you want more happiness, you don't have to chase money, but you can look for another more happier person in life and still embrace that. And that's what I don't want to find excuses to say, oh, I'm not happy. Well, find someone more happier than you. There's a going back, I'm sure, being listening to your podcast for quite some time. Joel Osteen, the evangelist, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of him. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the religious-based stuff, but the writings he does, he writes about positive bank and negative bank. If you have people around you who are negative or negative bank, they're going to borrow from you the positive vibes and you become negative.
Yeah.
So you need to find yourself people who are more positive than you, richer than you, smarter than you name it. And you can draw inspiration from them. When you're surrounded by people who whinge, whine, complain, and what you do is you tend to lose your edge on trying to make decisions based on the greater good. And so victim mindset, not for me.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. I think the challenge there is that it takes some courage to accept the fact that the victim mindset is getting you nowhere. The alternative to that is taking full ownership of where you are at.
Yes.
And which may need, and if that's not where you want to be, then you need, as you say, you need to start surrounding yourself with people who you want to be or emulate or look up to or mentor. And that's a process of burning out the dead wood. And that's challenging. You went from America then to Australia?
I went to the UK.
You went to the UK before that?
Yes, I lived in Coventry. And then I did some fellowship in Scotland, Edinburgh.
With this view, Vas, that it's just, I find this is probably more so in the medical profession than anywhere else, that this view of this thirst of knowledge and this wherever I go, I'll go, but I'll sort of, it's almost like whimsical, I'll follow the wind because it means more knowledge.
Yeah.
Better experience, better opportunity, just in terms of the knowledge, nothing to do. Is your mind at all thinking business, entrepreneurial, or at this stage it's just how do I be a better dentist and orthodontist?
Correct. It's I think the first 12, 13 years was all about gaining knowledge to the point there's nothing more higher than one, right? So trying to specialize in orthodontics, no matter which part of the world, was going to be like a good university or good environment, not for any university, wherever there's an opportunity went. And I think medical profession, as you said, would go and do that because we want to gain. Look, I don't know about others. I wanted to be a specialist. As a dentist, I struggled to keep my knowledge base on every aspect of dentistry and to be good at that. And so I early on decided I wanted to be an orthodontist. An orthodontist inspired me. And that's what Focus was all about. My backup option was going to be a maxillofacial surgeon. And one of the coolest thing about orthodontics is there's no pain, there's no blood. There's a lot of people coming in wanting to be there. And we create a fun environment and they leave more happier because of the smiles we create. And there's no better way to be in life than to be an orthodontist in this dental profession. And I can focus my knowledge on just one aspect of dentistry. And when I chose wanting to come to Australia, I was given the option between King's College and Sydney University. And Sydney University offered me a merit scholarship, which they don't easily hand out. And there's only 14 spots in the country. The whole country of Australia and New Zealand have 14, 15 spots for orthodontics. And they were wanting to offer me scholarship with a fee reduction, and they were going to pay me second and third year. It was a no-brainer. And plus, it's a great university to be at. So I moved, and my love affair for Sunshine Coast started with Steve Irwin. When I lived in the U.S., Steve Irwin was the only Australian Americans would ever know.
Yeah.
And then I followed him to come to Sunny Coast.
From Sydney, you legitimately moved to the Sunshine Coast to be closer to the crocodile hunter.
100%. That was the only thing I had anything going for me. Was Steve Irwin. And again, he's an inspiration. He can go beyond his own little town to country and outside of the country to the world, and the influence he had on many people and his beautiful, gorgeous accent. and just the way he lived his life. And can you think of any better icon that you can relate to?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. Let's go back also just to that piece that I think we can work on a bit more on. If we talked about how you lack the empathy or the sympathy for the people who live in victim, but what would be, do you have any advice to someone who is listening to this and feel like they are stuck in that place? Do you think, what's the piece of advice to get out?
I'm going to throw my Indian heritage hat on me now. The great thing about coming from my culture, and possibly sometimes the worst, is your friends and family really truly give you genuine feedback.
Right.
And it's honest as it comes.
Mm.
But if you surround with people who are going to tell you what you need to hear and you like it, you're not going to come out of where you are. As brutal as it is, my mother will tell me 6 times a year, she'll tell me whether I've lost weight or put on weight or I'm eating too much. Look, it's something that if you're open, honest, you will never shy away from it.
Yeah.
Just listen. And dad the same. You're getting angry. You need to work harder. My dad's always is like, hey, you only work 4 days a week. Even now he tells me, you could easily work, for the energy you've got, you can work 6 days a week. I'm very surprised he's come down for 7 days a week, 6 days a week.
That's personal growth.
So he is definitely getting westernized.
Yeah.
And I always tell I've got 40 plus people who work for me, and anytime there's a downtime for them or they're down, I'll always tell them, do you want any help from me? How you want to get out of this? Or do you just want me to hear your problems?
Am I hearing? Am I listening? Or am I fixing?
Yeah. And being a man, of course, there's always a fix. There's a solution out there. And I'm very mindful of not throwing it out there unless asked. And when they do ask, I'll tell them, you need to talk to your parent, talk to your sibling. But don't tell them or don't get upset with them if they tell you something you don't want to hear. Because every time you get upset at it, they're not going to tell you more. And I think as a culture, that has always been great, whether it's my sister, whether it's my mom, dad, uncle, aunt. They never hold back. They just tell you. And there will always be a family friend who never tell you. They want to just tell you all the good things. But I don't want that. So anybody who is feeling down, you need to be surrounded by people who tell you as it is.
Yeah. Give some honest feedback. Now, you moved to the Sunshine Coast to follow Steve Irwin. When do you meet your wife?
I met my wife just in 2010. And 2011 was the official meeting, family, whatnot. And we are married in 2012. She lived in Brisbane, and I met her online. And being silly me, I wanted to try to be respectful. I said, you want to meet in Bribey Island? Halfway through for both.
Right.
And she said, yeah. She said, oh, you must be new to Queensland.
There's
Nobody meets in
There's
Bribey Island.
There's not a lot in Bribey Island, for sure.
So then she offered to come up to the Sunshine Coast to meet me. And so since then we've been great. We got 2 kids. So online dating is not that bad.
Hey team, just popping in to say thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the episode, please take a second to like or follow the show and share it with a friend. It's the best way to help us grow and keep bringing you more great content. All right, let's get back into it. The next chapter that I want to talk about, Vas, is about building a business, taking risks and leading teams. You've built, I think, one of the most recognizable businesses now on the Sunshine Coast. I'm really interested. And for those who aren't aware or listeners outside of the region, you had a great business, but you almost went all in. Well, you effectively went all in terms of the idea of constructed an amazingly fit for purpose building. I'm really interested in your mindset when you came here and started your own practice. And I want to talk about, I guess we'll get into the challenges that you found then and the why and why you wanted to do that as against anything else. And then when the cog started turning for you to say, well, because you could have been satisfied with that. You could have been, I'm happy with where I am. I built, a relatively small team compared to what you have now, and life is good. But you weren't you weren't satisfied with that. And so you've gone, as I said, you've gone all in, and what you've done is absolutely incredible. But I'm so interested in understanding your, in the quiet times, what's going on in your head, and going, why did you feel the need to do that?
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to the first bit, to start your own business in the first instance, and where you sit now?
Starting a business on the Sunshine Coast was not that hard of a decision. In 2010, I decided I needed to have my own place, mainly because I was not interested in buying an existing practice where the philosophies were very different. Coming from Sydney University, which had a very strong reputation of non-extraction, which means no teeth out for braces. And when I came to the Sunshine Coast, I saw the philosophy was teeth out braces, very old school. And I wasn't going to buy a business that had the reputation of that and trying to change that into what I knew best. And so buying into or buying a practice was not something I wanted to do.
So just on the tools, because I'm not in your industry, if there is a tooth that is so out of alignment, the thought would be to remove that and then to bring the braces in, as against being more challenging to bring that misaligned tooth back to alignment.
Correct. Yes. Okay. To try to create bone and create jaw structures. And this is, again, I've been doing this now for 15 plus years. And so I came with that knowledge and I wanted to do that here. So I wanted to build something that was creative. And also the newer technique of at that time was clear aligners. And everybody calls things like Invisalign, which is a company that makes them. So I came in with that knowledge of high-end tech. But when I came here, I felt that wasn't popular, or that wasn't something everybody did. So I had to create a business from scratch that would have my vision and philosophy. And so, yes, I became successful. I grew well, and initially, finding it hard to adjust to the lifestyle of the Sunshine Coast. I was living in Sydney and the big city, and coming to Sunshine Coast with flip-flops, and it was just a very different lifestyle. And after a few years, it was easier to just become Sunny Coast local. And I stopped going to Sydney and started living here. Fast forward many years later, which is new to our part of the world, a corporate came and bought an orthodontic practice in town, or two of them. And that's very new for the country. That's new for Sunshine Coast. We knew from historical evidence in the US, where corporates come into that sector, they tend to put money first. They tend to put dollar value return on investor cash first, then patient opinions and care. I knew what they will initially do is put in a lot of money and funds to grow their business. And so we needed to be ready for it. But I couldn't have done that with the same slightly older style system, and I wanted to be open. And the next part was the Olympics. When they were announcing Olympics the same week is when I realized I needed to be in a position where, with the new amount of interstate and intrastate migration that could happen to Sunshine Coast, I needed to have a clinic that had not only the wow factor, but also the volume factor, that we could grow to the point, not just me, if another doctor joins me or two, we would become the first choice, should become the first choice. And so then I created this concept of a new clinic that has a lot of open spaces, lots of private rooms for adults, lots of high cool tech. And so we needed space.
Yeah.
And so luckily we found a place next door to where we were and started on the project. But construction on the Sunshine Coast is not for everybody. So the cost was just an excruciatingly painful aspect of the build.
Yeah.
The town planning was not so much. The architectural design was not so much. The execution was not so much. But the cost of building
materials
was far too high. And so that really causes a lot of finance issues with banks and funding. So
You talk about the need to match the growth of the future of the Sunshine Coast. What motivated you though? Because how many rooms, I think you call it, was your original business before you moved across?
5 in my previous practice.
And this place has the capacity for 15.
Yes.
And so what was internal, Vas? Why couldn't you just sit there and be satisfied with the business you had?
Well, over the last 10 years, I'd built a reputation of being a global speaker in my world of orthodontics. The world's second largest commonly used clear aligners called Spark was created in my office. So we're the founder doctor of this system. And now it's available in 100 plus countries. 1 million plus patients have used them. It all started here. So you can tell globally companies were wanting to use my knowledge and skill base, especially the non-extraction methodology. I wanted to embrace. And so there was a demand for it. And then I had opportunity to travel around the world, listen to other doctors, see other clinics, and come up with a mindset that we could do this on the Sunshine Coast in a better way. If I'd just done my math properly, I wouldn't have done as big as we headed. I could have easily sat in my clinic, had a week-long wait list or 2, but I had this idea that the next generation is going to be people who want it today, who want it now. And next week wasn't good enough. And so I wanted to create a system that could cater to that as long as ethically possible.
You went down the private funding route for the construction at tremendous risk to your own personal, wealth and your family's wealth and your family's future. Where did the courage come from that?
Stupidity, more like it. Courage, maybe different. Look, I mean, I'm always courageous enough to know that I could pay the debt. I never walked away from paying any debt, personal or financial. And I did all different sums, slept 3-4 hours a night to realize, like I would wake up at 3 a.m. suddenly go like, oh, did I figure that out? And I would work on it. Was it worth it? I don't know if anybody, I would tell people, yes, it's worth it. But was it risky? 100%. If the Reserve Bank had not reduced the rates as they have done in the last, 6 to 8 months, I would still be fine, except my breathing space would have been still limited.
Yeah.
But I created all scenarios. There's no different from post-COVID. I mean, when COVID hit and we had to close down shop, I had 14 staff to feed and what happens? And then I'm thinking, well, if COVID kills me, then why am I stressing? Like you think about the bigger scheme of things. People are dying. This is not the time to worry about these things. We'll figure it out. And even not once we asked for a delay in our payments during that time. At the same time now, I've done all scenarios of the rates going up, rates coming down. What would I do? I would work a Saturday. I would work a Sunday.
Yeah.
Nothing would stop me from opening up so that I can pay my debt. So was it risky? Of course.
It sounds like the sheer belief in your own ability to get the work done will always trump the risk.
Correct. Yeah. I was willing to work longer hours, different days, different places. And I even had an offer to go and work in P&G, where it was funded by somebody and was very good money. And I even thought, worst case scenario, I'll fly out Friday night, work Saturday, Sunday, come back Sunday night and pay my bills. So thankfully, I didn't have to do that.
I love your mindset. I love the way that you put together in terms of you see it from a different angle. You see it from, well, why not? Why can't that be possible? Now, you'll know where this is going when I launch into this, that one of our guests earlier, or relatively early on, sub 100, was the youngest pilot to fly around the world in Lockheed Smart. I was very fortunate to be at your opening at work, and Lockie was there. And I have all the time in the world for him. He's an incredible human. And he tells me the story, which I knew a little bit before, but he was your pilot and he taught you how to fly. But more importantly, is that you had a office or a clinic rather at Hervey Bay, which is about a 3-hour drive from here, that you serviced a couple of days a week or a day a week to help that environment, help that community with their orthodontic needs. But instead of having a team there or trying to recruit there or driving your team up, you decided, let's fly. Where did that mindset come from and that decision to come from in terms of every other person in the world would say, we'll just either not do it because it's too far away, or if we're going to do it, we'll just get a bus or we'll just drive up there ourselves.
Yes. So I think growing up in India where our home was not far from the airport, but I suppose every boy, I can't think of many boys who would say, I don't like aviation. Aviation is one of those things that mesmerizes, the sheer feat of engineering right in front of your eyes. It's a modern day miracle. And so, yes, when I was in high school, I asked my dad if I could go and become a pilot, but the cost of trying to become a pilot was far excruciatingly high. That wasn't going to possibly happen. So I set up a clinic here, and I was driving. It was good. It was good fun. This is long before the Gympie bypass and all that thing was set up, so it was pretty painful to get there. But I always say regional Queensland is a gem in terms of the people, in terms of how much they value and appreciate the services they get. And that's one of the reasons why I became a volunteer for Angel Flight, because I go to regional Australia to take care of them, to go to the local hospitals. How it all started, and I'll connect Lockie into this, is my second child was born. And as my son was growing up, I realized that I was just getting up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. sometimes when it's a nice, less busy day. And you get ready and you drive 3 hours with a breakfast stop and start patients at 7:38 in the morning in Hervey Bay and work till 5 p.m. and then drive back home. I miss seeing him or my daughter and my wife for pretty much one day before and after would be a write-off. And then I realized, what are my options? Unless the government magically brought a bullet train, Sunshine Coast to Hervey Bay, this is not going to change. And they'd been promising this bypass forever, and it wasn't going to happen. Then I said one random day, I said, how about I go learn flying? And I could fly and get this job done quicker. And of course, as always, my wife was like, oh, here we go. Another thing you want to do. I then started learning Saturday, Sunday training. And a year and a bit later, I got my license. And Lockie was a blessing in the mix. And he came and was courteous. And let's talk about this young man. I mean, isn't he for this age is so down to earth and brings in so much positive energy to a lot of young people in this world. And that's why I look up to him.
Yeah,
and
forget how young he is, actually.
Yeah, he inspires me and he inspires thousands of other people.
Yeah.
And when I want something like that, I go back to people like him and engage his confidence and knowledge. And he does it in a pleasing way. So yeah, he did help me while I was still being certified for instrument rating. And I had some bumpy steps to get to my license. And then foolishly enough, one day I said, let's get a plane I want to learn in and then learn in that plane. And that's helped me a lot going further forward. I take a team with me when I go there. And I do have a bunch of maybe 9 or 10 staff in Hervey Bay that work for me. So it's a great way to retain a skill, learn a skill. And I come home and now my kids are teenagers. They don't want me too much around them. So I don't know what's going on there.
And from what I've heard as well, Vas, is that you're incredibly good at building a team around you and the people in that team and the quality of human that they are. Talk to me about the art of amassing a team to help achieve the common goal in your perspective.
I mean, my manager's been around for 12 years, means pretty much since the time I started. She came in while I was manning the reception because we were only 2 people at that time. She walked in, she brought on a resume, she had the great smile. And I said, what have you done before? She said, da-da-da-da. And I said, okay, you are hired. And so I didn't go through a big, massive vetting process to bring her in. And 12 years later, she's still a great asset. A lot of people who work for me have been working with me for years. And I also constantly remind my wife that people who even leave me to go to another job because they move out of town or the partner has moved on, moved somewhere, when they come back to Sunshine Coast, they come back to me. And the strength comes because I treat them respectfully, and I obviously am a what I would call as a fair boss, but ultimately I'm honest. I just tell them, and if they don't like it, I'll tell them why they don't like it and how they should take my feedback. And I'm not trying to be personal. I'm just trying to tell them what works for my vision. And I always tell people, your view and your feedback to my business is important. But unfortunately, I make decisions based on a long good, bigger good, and they should just be part of that. A lot of my staff give a lot of constructive criticism. I take it and I value it. I respect them for that. And just with the growth, I have stopped hiring. I mean, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I stopped interviewing people and let my staff hire new staff.
Yeah.
Because they got to work with them, right? So, and that's been a great blessing.
Is there anything you would have done differently in growing over the last 10 years?
There's lots of things we could have done differently and do differently, but I tried to give my staff a lot of different roles rather than one role, one person.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always had that mindset where if somebody called in sick, all of us need to know how that person's job works. And that was a tough one. Cross-training somebody into another role is difficult because it's easy to look, for example, in the clinical aspect, it's easy to blame the girl who doesn't order things correctly. The ordering girl can blame the reception for not giving her the information correctly. And the blame game can easily go on. But now that they do someone else's role for a couple of weeks, they realize how hard that role is. And making them respect that role has been great, but it's not been fun.
Yeah.
If I could have had a piece...
Is that something you've changed?
No, I haven't changed it, but I've just now have enough staff that rotating them around hasn't caused issues. But when only 3 or 4 people used to do it, it was a lot difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
And just financially empowered them to just try different roles.
Yeah, right.
So they respect the other person.
Got it. One of the first questions I asked you, I don't know whether you remember when we first met, you have your 2 kids and their environment is obviously, in some ways, probably very similar, but other ways very different to what your upbringing was. It'd be arguable, Vas, that you had a tougher and more modest upbringing than your 2 children. How do you personally navigate that as their father in steering where they will go as they grow up?
And talking about my children's lifestyle is one of my daughters, she was in a different school last year, and one of her friends was upset or not happy that she flew economy class for her last school holidays. And that was one of the great reasons why I moved her out of that school to go elsewhere. And why I say that is because children grow in a different life. And I think as parents, some parents work hard and they feel like the best way to live is to provide their children a lot of goodies. The newest iPad, newest iPhone, skiing holidays, things you and I may have never seen or dreamt of. Is that a guilt that a lot of parents feel because they work hard, they don't have time, which means when they do have holidays, it has to be the most expensive, like, luxurious. We tend not to do that. We tend to go to what I would expect them to go and live and enjoy life as a simple child, what they should know. And in one way is we always try to stay in a suburbia, take the train, and even in Los Angeles, which I don't recommend to many people, with homelessness everywhere, we took the trains everywhere, which was scary for them, but they saw the reality. And for me, that's one part I want to try to keep them, is try to give them a very simple lifestyle and they need to work hard. And I anytime my daughter says something, I'll remind. She said, "I'm going to my room." I said, "It is not your room." And I just have to remind her, you live in my house. Well, I'll say your mom and I own this place. You're staying here. And so it's not your room. And the reason I say that is with as much love, but I want her to know that it's not her room. And I don't know how to put it this way, but I just want to give them some basic concept, what it means to live with access to a private school, access to a car, which we didn't grow up with.
Mm.
So getting a car to dropped off and picked up in school is not normal.
How do you embed the lessons that you learned through your childhood, like the struggle or the discipline or the resourcefulness, into their existence when they're not dealing with that?
Once a week, I get them to
dial up the internet.
For a year, I cut off the internet and television at our home.
Oh,
1.5 years. And just to see how all of us would cope. And we cope well, to be honest. I don't think it affected us. It was everybody frowned and they're like, what's going on? I said, look, I'm building a project down the road and I just don't have $50 to spend on the internet. But once a week, I make sure they spend at least 30 to 40 minutes easy with my parents or my wife's parents. Then their job is to get to know how they grew up. Right. And simple, they can hang around with the grandfather, grandmother, learn, and ask questions more like, how did they go to school? My father cycled 16 kilometers to go to school, right? And again, he was the first graduate in that town. And the cycle was given by somebody else, donated to him because he used to walk, because you can afford the bus. So if you don't hear about that, how do you relate to where we are and what a luxury they have? So we're trying to instill some basic common sense about what's normal.
It's a difficult one because as a parent, you want what's best for them. You don't want them to suffer more than they have to. And each generation in an ideal scenario has a greater opportunity with greater privileges than we had it. I think it's a balance that every parent struggles with. But it's fair to say, you've built this incredible practice and your name is so incredibly respected on the coast. What's the legacy piece for your family when it comes to who you are? What do you want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered as a kind person, as kind as it gets. Someone who's generous with his time, who'd be remembered to be, when people are down, I was available for them. And I don't want to be remembered as a guy who had this big business or had this properties or had a plane. I want to be remembered as a guy, when I was down, he was there for me. When I struggled, he was willing to spend more time with me, to work and give me some way out. He gave me all his time. I want to be remembered as a person who they would call upon when they're down, not when they're happy, and want to share that feeling.
Mm. What do your parents think about where you are now?
Other
than your dad berating you for not working 7 days a week?
My mother doesn't get carried away with these things because, most of these things are can be on and off whenever we want it, right? My dad is incredibly proud because he appreciates the network I've built in creation of all these jobs I've created, and people look up to me, and he really admires it. And he's my source of inspiration because he used to work very long hours. I never pulled the thing on, my dad never came to my school functions. Sure. I don't play that. My kids do that from time to time. It really upsets me. But again, I'm trying to balance it. But one of my friend recently on his podcast, is an American guy, and he told on that podcast, and he says it a few times, there's never been a generation of parents ever before who have spent more time with the kids than these current generation of parents. Also, the same parents also say they don't spend enough time with them. They're already spending a lot more than normal, what is considered as normal.
Yeah.
And then they say, I don't spend enough time with them because they've been made to feel that their time with the kids is not good enough or needs to be more. And I just think we all have to be aware that more time with the kids doesn't mean they're going to get the best guidance. The kids need to learn from their own mistakes. They need to make their own path. Whether you give them the freedom to go and do stuff is different, but they need to learn how to handle. Otherwise, we'll have a generation of kids who will never know how to handle pressure.
And I think it's also really important to be the example, not to the exclusion of, there's always a balance, right? Not to the exclusion of your own time and quality time with your own kids, but you need to set the example of what dad's busy, or mum and dad are busy doing this, and so they can't be here for me now, or I know I've got to sort this out myself, or otherwise, right? It's just, it's a I don't know. Parenting is a wild ride, and
It is.
I remember listening to someone's analogy that it's effectively an 18-year long breakup. You know, you're getting them ready to leave, and getting them right to. But anyway, it's
there's no recipe. I mean, you can read all the books you want, but every child, every family, every scenario is different.
Yeah.
But don't create this culture that you have to be around them all the time, every time, for everything. Let them make some decisions. Let them fail. You don't have to prop them up. And then they will find a way out of it.
Yeah.
We all have.
Fantastic. Vas, this has been brilliant. Before you go, final 5 questions. You would have heard them. What does success mean to you?
To be able to provide to others who may not have the same option all the time.
What does happiness mean to you?
What I'm doing right now.
I love that. What does a morning routine look like for you normally?
Up between 4:30 and 5 a.m., a simple workout. And if it's a work day, I will prepare for the day, what's coming, and thanks to my phone tells me what I have to do for the day. And then when I finish work and I had a very productive day, I just have time with the family and look forward to a peaceful night's sleep.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to your younger self that you put on a billboard for the world to see?
Live for today. Build for tomorrow.
So good. I like that. And then a guest that you think would be a great person to come onto the show.
There's this amazing guy, Mark Barclay. He, without naming him or what he does in the podcast, I'll tell you, it's a great story, good and bad. So worthwhile, I'll introduce you.
Mark Barclay.
Yeah.
All right.
And from a female perspective, I'm not sure if Min Swan has been here.
No, I haven't. I know Min well.
Yeah.
Well enough.
And if you want to really spice things up, Sam and Ash from Hot 91.1.
Yes. I've already put the feelers out for both of those to come on, so that'll be great. Dr. Vas, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you. But I mean, what you do is incredible. It's, I've only known you for less than 4-6 months or so. And being an athlete, being a lawyer, running a business, and being charming as you are, and happy to talk to, and I just gained a new friend.
This is now a sponsored piece about the podcast, not about invisible orthodontics. But anyway,
oh, thank you.
No, that's very kind of you. But yes, I appreciate that. Till next time.
Absolutely. 100%.
That was another episode of the Success Times Happiness podcast. Next time you're thinking about flying yourself to work just to save a few hours in the day, turn to the person next to you and tell them all about the show. It really means a lot. A huge thank you to Dr. Vas for sharing his remarkable story with such honesty and energy. If today's conversation inspired you, please subscribe, leave a comment, or share it with someone who needs to hear it. It truly helps the show grow. Until next time, peace.